I saw this quote on TikTok and I wanted to share it with you because it actually really made me reevaluate the way I look at self-awareness in particular, and I think you'll be really interested by it as well. So it says, if you consider yourself to be self-aware, but you're only aware of the things that you need to improve on and not the things that you're actually really good at and really proud of, you're literally not self-aware. You're just being a hater to yourself disguised as self-awareness.
That's so true. As you're saying that, I was like, wait a second, that's right. You're just weakness aware.
Literally, because self-awareness is the whole of you. So that's
Yeah.
everything, whether that's the good things that you do, the not so great things that you do, how you deal with situations, positive and negative. And I feel like we do become a little bit obsessed with this idea that we need to fix ourselves and improve on things
And be perfect.
and be perfect, exactly. And I do think while all of that is well and good, and there is a place for it, because I think the whole point of self-awareness is also acknowledging what you need to develop on. And this whole self-development space online has become huge recently. So I think we're all hyper aware of developing and improving and fixing things. But it did take me back a little bit because I was like, oh my gosh, actually throughout this whole journey, I've not actually considered what am I good at already? What am I innately good at doing, and what qualities do I have that are actually positive? Because
Yeah, like what are my strengths?
that's not even a consideration. It's constantly like, okay, well, I do this wrong and I need to fix the way I do this, and I don't deal with these kind of situations in the right way, and I don't communicate this properly, and there's all these things that I constantly feel like I need to correct and improve and be better at next time. But are there any things on reflection that you feel like you are good at and are positive characteristics and things? I feel like these aren't things that we actually consider. So I want us to use this episode to actually open our minds to that realm.
It's hard because like I'm the same. I'm super self-critical anyway. This is a thing I've struggled with
Yeah.
very publicly on the podcast and also just in general. I'm really mean and harsh to myself. I used to be really mean and harsh to myself. I'm less so now, but what I do struggle with, and in the last week I have actively struggled with, is like accepting compliments, which are basically ways to recognize the things that are good about you or positive things about you, because they're coming from outside of you as well. It's not like you have to force yourself to be like, oh, you are good at this and you don't suck at it. It's like someone else is saying it, then it has to be true.
You believe
Why
it
can't you
more.
listen to it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've been really struggling with that because I don't know if you're the same. I really struggled to accept compliments my entire life. It makes me cringe. I always combat a compliment with a self-deprecating joke or a way to make the compliment invalid or dull it down a little bit. And there's been times in the last year because I've been trying to work on this in terms of even just building up my own self-esteem. If someone compliments me, I will try and mentally note that or tell someone else about the compliment. Most of the time it's Sam. Use that as a way to validate the compliment itself instead of just hearing it, trying to negate it, and then making it go away in my brain. You talk a lot about portfolio of proof, right? And I feel like accepting compliments is your way of building up the portfolio of proof for yourself that you're good at whatever it is you're being complimented on, or you look good or you feel good, and you keep it in yourself as like a skill that you know you're good at and you recognize it and you actually give it credit, which therefore gives yourself credit. So that's one thing I'm trying to work on, to be honest. But I struggle with the holisticness, and I have a fear of tipping the other way and being too proud or quote unquote egotistical, which is so annoying because I remember I was watching one of Tam Core's videos ages ago and she defined humble. And I'm pretty sure when she defined it, the actual definition of humble was something like to think very little of oneself.
I think I seen the same video. Yeah, I was a bit shocked at that
Yeah.
because you always get told to be humble as if that's
A good thing.
the place you should be in life. Humbleness is the goal. No matter what you have, remember to stay humble. But then, yeah, I want to actually search that myself.
Yeah. Well, it's the definition itself. I remember when she made that video and I was like, oh my God, it's not that bad to be egotistical because you'd rather be egotistical than humble. But then there's a line that you don't think you're good at everything and that you're the best and you put yourself on this huge pedestal. It's just understanding that you don't hate yourself or you don't dislike yourself. It's that part, it's the internal part rather than what you push onto other people.
Yeah.
And like, I struggle with that balance.
Deb, it literally says having or showing a modest or low estimate of one's importance. Being humble is basically saying, I'm not important.
Yeah, that's
I
not
didn't
great.
know that.
That's fueling self-hate.
I don't want to be humble anymore.
No, you don't, especially when you find the definition out.
That's actually crazy because you know how much you hear that growing up and how much people get praised for being humble as if, oh, they've reached this place successful in their career and lots of money. And you always hear people that are happy with those people by praising them for being humble. So you almost attach this idea of, oh, you can only reach those heights if you think less of yourself.
Yeah.
What? People are only going to be happy with you if you don't actually realise, oh, you did a good thing to get there. I think that's so warped. What's wrong with society? I don't get that. Why does that even become a word that is positively used? I feel like that should be a word that's an insult.
Yeah, that actually should
Like,
be an insult.
humble.
You're way too humble.
I'm going to start using it like that.
Well, to be fair, I feel like I've said it to friends before. If I feel like they're
Too humble.
yeah, if they're dulling down something amazing they've done, I feel like I must have shouted at someone being like, you're being too humble about this.
Yeah.
And
Can you
that way it
imagine
could
that?
be an insult. But I feel like it's not used negatively when you're right. We should definitely
It's
use that
not.
negatively.
I think that is a negative word. That's the first word I've ever come across that people use, try and make out it's a positive thing, and it's really not.
Yeah. But how do you be less, how do you be less humble without being egotistical? This is my,
So I think the distinction is not thinking that you are not important, but not thinking you're more important than others. When you have a big ego and you think a lot of yourself, you put yourself on a pedestal compared to everyone else, and you think you're better than them and you're smarter than them and you deserve more than them. Whereas I think just not being humble, but having that feeling of being important puts you not below other people, if that makes sense. Being humble, I think, puts you below them, which is also wrong.
so it's almost tying it back to other people again and thinking, okay, being egotistical would be thinking that you're above other people, but what you actually need to believe is that you deserve wherever it is you are, rather than
You are
using
as
other
deserving
people.
as the next person.
Yeah, you have to remove other people from the equation and just believe in your own worth and existence on this earth. And I think humility and egotistical behavior is maybe the two ends of the spectrum when you start to involve other people. So humility is, oh, I don't think I'm as good as other people, and then egotistical is, I'm way better than other people, when actually what we need is just,
Middle ground.
yeah, something that just doesn't include other people, and you're just thinking, okay, well, I'm important, but it doesn't matter about anyone else. I believe in myself and I believe in my worth.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's what it is, because when you are looking at your self-awareness and how confident you are, you do automatically compare yourself to other people. So if you have low self-esteem and low confidence, you automatically put people above you because you think, well, I'm not as good as them and I'm not as clever as them and I don't have what they have, and it's all external and about other people. But then in my head, the way that the definition of being humble is written, it almost still involves other people in that comparison, but this time it's, well, you're not important compared to other people, because otherwise, where is the scale of not importance? It's always compared to something else. So yeah, I definitely think that's not the goal anymore. That's crazy. But I also think, like you were mentioning earlier, it is really hard sometimes, without being told by someone else, to know, what are your strengths? What am I good at? What is good about me? What characteristics do I naturally have that are positive? Because we just don't pay attention to those things very much. But I think one thing that is probably useful to do going forward, and probably all the journaling girlies will be already doing this as part of their routines, but I think just reflecting day by day and like what you do during a single day and the things that happen, because a lot of the time when I think about journaling as well in general, and when I've done it in the past, it's always been an overview of my day, and gratitude and things like that, but nothing specific about, oh, what went well and what didn't go so well. And just having that really objective view of whether I handled a certain situation well, what actually happened in that day. So if there was a situation I dealt with, did I deal with it in a good way, or do I need improvement dealing with that? And I think by reflecting in that way, you're probably going to end up pulling out a lot of things that actually you're happy with. And you think going forward, I would continue to deal with a situation like that because I did it in the best way. And that would probably help reflecting on the positive things as well as the negative.
Yeah, definitely. I think another thing you could do is also do personality tests and character-led tests that you can do online, like 16 personalities and other, maybe even career-related strengths, because those things pull out what you're good at based on literally who you are, not just, oh, this is my skill, therefore I'm good at this. So no, this is your personality. I think my star sign drives a lot of my strengths and weaknesses as well. And for me, having that almost logical backing for some of the things that I'm good at makes me believe them a little bit more. So I like knowing, and I'm happy enough with the fact that I like to organize and plan and be in the details, and I like listening and being empathetic, and I know that those are all my strengths. So I can lean into that with more confidence rather than feeling like I don't need to know about them and that I need to dull them down as well.
Yeah, that's a good point actually. 'Cause those personality tests and being told about yourself is a really good starting point, and it almost forces you to acknowledge, do I resonate with that or do I not? And then when you do resonate, then you realize, oh, actually, that's an attribute that I can now hold on to and see in other scenarios as well. Because I think when it does feed all that information back to you, you can actually pull out your own examples of how you behaved a certain way that matches that characteristic, and you just learn so much more about yourself. And I think that's the key as well, is the more you understand yourself and the things that you like, you'll then begin to understand the things that you're good at as well as the things that need improving on.
Yeah, and not even necessarily need improving on. The stuff with the personality test that I've done in the past, I've really used that to inform ways I can be productive without having to do stuff I don't like, if that makes sense as well. If I'm not good at, for example, actually, you know, I don't have any examples right now, but if there's any things that I'm not good at, for me, it's just a good sign that I don't have to put all my energy into becoming good at that thing, because I'm naturally not going to be. So I don't need to force myself, and then I enter this cycle of high self-criticism because I'm doing something I'm naturally not good at, but I'm forcing it. Whereas because I've done a personality test, and I like to do them regularly, especially the 16 personalities one, I like to do it every year or so. And for me, it's just again that reminder of, okay, I don't need to put energy here because my natural strengths lie here. And it also helps you reinforce your understanding of what you're good at. You're more likely to be that holistically self-aware person because you're not forcing self-improvement where it doesn't need to be.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
No, I get what you're saying. But do you feel like there are certain characteristics or things about people that everyone should just be good at? So say, for example, if your personality test or just you in general felt like you weren't that good at communicating, but you had all these other strengths, things like that are still things that everyone has to work to get to a good place at being a good communicator or
be a good listener. Yeah, no, I think I agree with you. There's probably a basic, a foundation level of things you should probably be good at. But then I think that applies to self-improvement. And when you're looking to improve in things, those like basic things, yeah, go ahead. But then, for example, for me, if I go one level up from the basic things, because I'm such a detail person, I used to be quite annoyed at myself for not being a big picture person, honestly, because I want to be a big picture person. I wish I could just look at a vision and understand it and not care about the details, but I physically cannot. So especially in workplaces, it's really easy to beat yourself up for not being able to do things that you can see your peers sometimes are amazing at. And when you're surrounded by people as well who really lean into their strengths, it can sometimes make you feel like you're, I don't know, lacking in those things just because you're not leaning into them. But yeah, I think I agree with you in that if there's a pyramid of strengths or skills, that base level, there's definitely probably a few that everyone should be at an equal level at.
Yeah. No, I get that as well. I think when you are in a corporate setting or working with other people, you end up highlighting how different your strengths can be to someone else. But I think if you are insecure and you're not really self-assured, that can really affect your own confidence and your own strengths and not even realize that you have strengths, because we're all meant to be good at different things. That's why we exist. It'd be so weird if we lived in a world when everyone was good at the exact same things and we were all terrible at the same things, because nothing would ever get done. We wouldn't have the things we have, and the world would be a shambles in a place like that if that existed. We underrate the fact that we are so different to other people, but that's actually a positive thing. I remember I used to get sucked into the trap of seeing how good someone was at something and realizing, oh, that was actually a weakness of mine, and then feeling really down about that and feeling like, oh, well, now I'm less than, and now I don't have as much to offer, or saw that as a negative on me, when actually there was plenty of things that I was good at that I wasn't acknowledging that could have been a weakness for them. And that happens so much, I think, in workplaces and stuff. And I think where we worked was quite good at playing to people's strengths and acknowledging that people had different strengths. But I think in general, when you are trying to go on this like self-development journey and you are focusing on all the things that you have to improve on, and then you come across people that are really good at things that aren't your strengths, that can play into you feeling, oh, that's just another thing I need to work on, another thing that I'm not good at, which actually, like you said, it doesn't even need to be something that you work on. You can just fully lean into your own strengths and what you're good at and have a bit more tunnel vision on those. But what I also have realised is that a lot of the times our thoughts don't actually match reality in terms of what we are good at and the things that in reality we are really strong in doing, or these characteristics that we have that are positive. Sometimes you can almost trick yourself in your mind to not actually have those qualities about you. And I think that does come down to comparing yourself again and being in that headspace. But sometimes you almost have to separate your thoughts from what is objective reality in terms of the things that you're good at or not so good at versus the things that you just think you're not good at because, I don't know, maybe someone said something to you, or maybe you've just felt really, I don't know, insecure in a certain situation that's made you feel like you're not as strong in something as you actually are, because now you're starting to lessen that belief in yourself. Our thoughts play a huge part in how we see our own characteristics and our value and what we have to offer because of these maybe prior experiences that we've had, and then it just changes your mindset towards what you have to bring to the table in situations. I think that's also a practice to be aware of, is to actually check your thoughts sometimes and be like, why do I actually think this about myself? Where has that come from? Is that valid? How do I have proof of that? Or is this just more of a fear than anything else?
Yeah. I've heard of that as like a journaling technique.
Yeah.
When you write down things you do believe about yourself, and then next to it, you have to write down, well, what's the source of this information? And then next to that, you have to write down, well, what's the evidence that this is actually factually correct? And most of the time, you're right. The things we think are probably not going to align up to the facts and the evidence.
Literally.
that we
It's
can pull
crazy.
out.
Your mind actually create scenarios sometimes that aren't even real life. And you have to check that a lot. And just the way you build up your identity in your head sometimes is a massive reflection on just how you're feeling, your insecurities inside you, or your anxieties towards things, rather than, oh, what you actually are fundamentally and objectively are good at doing, or have proved that you can do before. Okay, guys, well, I think we'll leave the episode there. We hope you've enjoyed it, and we hope we've given you a bit of food for thought in terms of just how to actually be self-aware, but be aware of the positive things as much as the negative. And as we've discussed, it can be quite difficult to do with all of the focus always being on development and the things that you need to work on. But hopefully the few tips that we've shared in this video will help you go down that path of realizing that there are a lot of positive things about your character and you have a lot of strengths to offer the world. So whether that's just reflecting on your day and journaling about what went well that day, and what you achieved. I think that's a really helpful thing to actually make sure you are tracking the good things as well as the things that didn't go so well. And also be sure to just make sure you're not really being in your head too much about the things that you feel like you're not good at, and to also just reflect on what objectively you are good at versus just what are you feeling in the moment, or your insecurities that are playing on your mind. And make sure you take that personality test as well that Dev mentioned, because by just understanding yourself a bit better or being told a few things about your strengths and your weaknesses, that's a really good starting point in understanding who you are as an individual, how you work, the positives as well as the things that you can work on. And it's a really good holistic view of things that you can take away in action as well, because we all do still want to improve and be the best versions of ourselves, but we want to do that while acknowledging all the positive traits that we have and not discounting them, because I think we do that way too easily.
If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, don't forget to follow the show and give us a rating. And if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe and leave us a comment, especially if you do your little personality test as well. And we will catch you next week, guys. Bye.